Thank you, Vadim. The Far East is, of course, not only representative of its natural resource wealth, but also a unique organizational and legal system of management. And when we were working on the TAD project and on the free port of Vladivostok as a legal system, we tried to take into consideration the experience of our neighbors, and we have all the resources to become a competitive player on the market in that respect. As far as the challenges are concerned, we have to focus on these challenges through industrial support measures, which the Ministry of Trade and Industry organizes, not only within the territory of the Far East, but in the country as a whole. We have two ministries, the Ministry of the Far East and the Ministry of Trade and Industry, which have worked out a set of measures and regulations on the TADs and on the development of the Far East, which the President has signed by December 2014. These laws were enacted by the middle of 2015, and of course we will be able to feel the results only in the coming months and years. It is still too early to say, but which doesn't mean that our only priority is the Far East, but it is among the priorities in our ministry. And in connection with that, the implementation of these laws should happen in parallel and with the special investment contracts, the law on special investment contracts, which is one of the most important and modern legal instruments which will be used in the Far East. Today we have signed a memorandum of intent, a protocol of intent, where we set our obligations with Mazda expiring by the end of 2015. I don't think that we are working with our partners in that respect, and we are quite enthusiastic. The special investment contract is a unique mechanism which allows to set the obligations of the investor, and the state will be able to use these obligations in creating incentives for the development of the region, and will be able to enact enforceable obligations of the investor. We have used a precedent for the development of this instrument, which was connected with the customs regimes. The instrument of a special investment contract is much broader and much more flexible. We can set the beneficial tax regimes and the necessary government allocation and subsidy elements into the system. One of the most important elements of the investment contract is managing demand. It's no secret that for the majority of investors, the predictable demand is one of the most important drivers for investments, and we, in that respect, need to localize the demand generated by the state and quasi-state companies. In the near future, we will set the option for one of the parties of the special investment contract in determining it as the single supplier of state purchases, and by 2016 we will endorse the law of special conditions for state purchases, and we will be able to embrace all the necessary demands and requests as to carrying out the special investment contracts, creating a more flexible situation for localization, and only in the future we will be able to somehow make these requests more rigid for the investors. Within the framework of this policy, we've been able to give the determination of an industrial park and a cluster in collaboration with Solars, and in Vladivostok and in the Far East, we're planning to create an industrial park, which will supplement the initial project of Solars on localization of an automobile park. The initial project, which became an anchor project, so to say, which was carried out by Solars with foreign partners, could not have been realized and implemented without the subsidies compensating expenditures for the supply of the necessary components to the Russian Federation. All this is connected with the fact that, unfortunately, the Far East currently cannot be attractive from the point of view of investments due to the large capacity of the market, to an overcapacious market. So we still have room for improvement in order to create the necessary clusters and the necessary attractive business environment, and an environment which would be attractive from the point of view of attracting human resources. In order to do that, the region has to be export-oriented. This is what we have to begin with, and from this point of view, this is going to be a point of attraction. A point of attraction for investors. Currently, the focus of our attention should be placed on the export. One of the other large projects I wanted to mention is the project of Rosagra, which is oriented at the markets of the neighboring countries. Both of these projects were mentioned at the plenary meeting. Our colleagues represented these projects at the plenary meeting, and they pointed out that we need to look for the market niches of the neighboring countries, which would allow us to implement the above-mentioned projects. On our side, from our side, through special economic regimes, we need to provide for the attractive investment environment. This is an additional chance for us in order to actually make the breakthrough in the development of this region, and to make the breakthrough in decreasing the combined expenditures, decrease the combined expenditures on the Russian market in comparison to those of the neighboring countries. Apart from the industrial and intra-industrial regimes I just mentioned, in order order to promote high technological production in this area. We need to support R&A and R&A, which is conducted along the lines of the existing budget. And the ministry is subsidizing the expenditures on research and development. And in the fall of this year, in the coming month, we are going to conduct a tender and choose the technological projects which are going to be subsidized by the government in accordance with the Decree 1213 of the government of the Russian Federation. And I hope that the potential investors in the Far East will take part in this tender and in choosing the necessary projects for subsidies. The other problem and point is to share the risks, and the Fund for the Development of Industry takes active part in conducting this work. I'm sure this instrument will start working in the Far East and will be conducive to its development. My colleagues will talk about that in more detail. Apart from what I have already said, I would like to mention another project which uses the experience of the Far East, and together with the Ministry of Finance, we are implementing the concept of special preferential tax regimes. This is within the framework of the so-called project on green fields. Within the law, the draft law on industrial policy, I am sure that a lot of amendments will be made in the law, but apart from giving the right to the regions to set tax rates on profit, we are also planning to introduce special tax benefits for special investment contracts. Vadim, I guess, will be interested in this aspect, and the products which will be manufactured within these contracts in accordance with the Ministry of Finance will be covered by beneficial and preferential tax rates. And the aim of this operation is to increase the demand for such production, especially in the field of machine building. As in the framework of special investment contract, the a range of products is going to be expanded due to the measures which will be used to incentivize the development of this area. Thank you very much, Gleb Sergeyevich.